Secrets from a Coach. Thrive and maximise your potential in the evolving workplace. Your weekly podcast with Debbie Green of Wishfish and Laura Thompson-Staveley of Phenomenal Training. Debs.
Law, you all right?
Yeah, I'm doing well, actually, after my little, I don't know, things got a little bit kind of stressy a bit last week. I think there was just a lot on.
Mm-hmm.
And, do you know, sometimes you think I'm missing that buzz and that chemistry. And I guess that's one of the challenges as a high extrovert is how do you keep that energy going if you're a party of one doing a lot of remote work, which I was then last week.
Yeah.
So am I alone, Debs? Is this a hot topic for others?
It's a super hot topic for others, Law. You're definitely not alone. And not having somebody to bounce off of who might just be sitting at a desk next to you normally, it can really have an impact if you haven't got that individual there. Or you can't just get up and walk to the water cooler and just have a, oh my God, can you believe just what's happened moment? Yeah, and you're in your own if you're remote working. There is a cat doesn't care, you know. Just as long as it gets fed, he's not happy. But it's really interesting that quite a few people are finding that time to connect, to just download some stuff, fix it, and move on is not there anymore. So yeah, it can have a massive impact on our mind health as well, because otherwise things go round and round, and you can feel yourself getting more and more worked up about it. Whereas if your colleague next to you is going, Law, what's going on with you at this moment? You go, wow, and you could download it, and then you'd both get on with it. But we're missing that.
Yeah.
We've got to create it.
Yeah, I think it was the point where you saw that I was throwing my handbags across the room that I was dialing in from on a bit of a mini tantrum that probably thinking, should we have a little chat?
Should talk about that one, Law.
Yeah. So the thing is, though, is we can't ask our parents and our grandparents for advice about this. We are
Definitely
the
not.
first generation of adult workforce who are working out what does it mean to have that sweet spot of in room with people, dialing in. So there's the convenience of not having to travel, which opens up so many doors for people to work in so many different roles. But actually, at what point does that lack of in-room interaction start to make an impact? So the first part of this 4-part focus, looking at effective hybrid working, was all about time management. So how do you ensure that just even those boundaries of on or off, which has such a big impact on wellness and performance and all those other things. This one is all about the teamship aspect. So Debs, in your experience, what are you picking up are some themes as a result of not just months now but years of more remote based team working, and actually what is really starting to come out as some patterns and some themes? So what are you picking up?
So picking up is the biggest one is about communication, not knowing what somebody else was doing, or no one's told me that that's what you were working on, and I've been working on that too. So it's that good old communication one is not clear. It's no clarity. There's no connection on it. It feels like that people aren't collaborating on certain topics. Some people might have been going off and doing their own thing, and then they've got back together on either in room or on a Teams meeting, and then somebody else has realised that they've just gone and done all that work. So it's the communication one that is just misaligning at times, which is the biggest one out of all of them. That's the one that keeps coming back even after all this time. Lack of communication, and lack of, I suppose lack of accountability to some extent as well. Whereas, well, I thought you were doing it. Well, I thought you were doing it. Well, no, I thought they were doing it. Which one of you was going to pick up the phone and ask? So it's like we've forgotten that. Am I the only one working on this? I might need to reach out to my colleague and see if they're working on it too. The phone is still there, so communication for me all the way.
Yeah. And communication, not just sort of volume. So it's not just masses and masses of emails.
No,
well, I did update
not.
the team. I sent them an email.
Yeah.
But if you were there in the room, you would have picked up those little micro measures, micro indicators that I'm not sure everyone's getting this. You know, let's have a bit more of a conversation about it. So communication is such a huge topic.
Yes.
What we wanted to do on this particular episode was look at what might be some top tips for maximising remote teamwork. Whether you are a team that is fully remote, whether you're mixing it with a bit of hybrid, so in office, dialing in. And I think there are a couple of concepts that can just really help decision make and prioritise what are some of the things that we want to work on. And then you got some nice top tips that you're going to take us through
I
at the
have.
end.
Yes.
So just to set a bit of context around this, I think if I sort of see what's playing out in training rooms and workshops at the moment, there's first off, there's a desire for the team to get together, but there's quite a amount of pressure that builds around that now, because if actually this is the first time that a whole team has come together ever, or at least maybe for 6 months, there's quite a bit of pressure, and people might worry actually about then, sort of coming in. They're a bit nervous about coming on a sort of a team day aspect, which is why then if ever we're facilitating sessions, the skill set hopefully that we all as a team bring in is just increasing rapport, dropping people's guard, and then they just so feel relaxed, and then they're able to kind of build in. And what's been, I just think, so gratifying is how useful people find some of these theories, concepts and models, not to get lost in the complication of things, but just to simplify what might be going on. And I think even for our team, when you can see there's a bit of a pattern and there are highs and lows, and this isn't that this team is never built to be effective together. It's like any living thing. There's an evolution, there's a stage, there's a process, and it can really help not only recognize where you're at now, but what that might mean to help set up for the next couple of months for it to be great. So one of the first tools we're going to go through is Tuckman's team dynamic model. And then Debs, you're going to slip in something little cool and sexy around team dynamics and what it means to be a really functioning team.
Yes, definitely. Looking forward to that. Tell us all about Tuckman then, Laura.
Okay, so picture the scene. You've got a big orchestra that is coming together. They're not used to playing with each other. You've got a set of individuals who are absolutely first-class performers themselves, but being a first-class performing expert in your own right, at some point, actually, the reason why you have a conductor or a manager is to enable that ensemble of people to be able to work well together and to play things better, more than a sum of their individual parts. So the metaphor of an orchestra, I think, just works beautifully when you think about a team warming up and going through that kind of process of learning to work with each other. So Donald Tuckman in the 1960s, this is Tuckman's model, 4 stages of team dynamics. So the first stage is forming. So forming is when you've got people first coming together. Maybe there is a action squad that's been put together to sort out some system issues. Maybe it is a new member joining a team, and there might be quite a high established team, but there's been some shifting in terms of who's in the team. So the first stage is everyone's on their best behaviour, really. So if someone says, so anyone got any problems? If everyone's kind of quiet, then keeps quiet. It's not because everything's great. It's just they're aware that they're in this kind of new sort of scenario. And then if this is where the analogy with the orchestra, I think, works beautifully, then you've got to warm up. So that's storming, where potentially there's lots of things that then can come out. In a moment, I know you're going to give us a bit more of an insight on how to maximise that storming time. And then this is where I think managers and leaders and architects within a team, so those key people that are within a team that shape the dynamics, really help go from storming to norming, which are those communication norms. How do we work with each other? If you're working as a hybrid or fully remote team, the check-in on the first and last shift of the week, just those little things that actually make it clear we are a team. There's more than just me. It's not just the communication flow. It's also that sense of belonging and that sense of we're sharing work, not one person sitting there melting at the end of a week, so kind of overwhelmed with it. And then that then leads itself. So after the forming, the storming, the norming, it then lends itself to a team that is performing, which, like that orchestra, even if someone makes an individual mistake, the rest of the orchestra just styles it out, because we're not here individually, we're here now as a collective, as a result of the process we've gone to form as a team. So in a moment, I know you're going to take us through a brilliant bit of kit that fits in quite nicely with the storming and the norming and how you arrive at that. But I think performing isn't just where you're making money as an organisation or delivering care. It's also the team are sturdy and stable enough to be able to handle anything. And the 5th stage that was put in the 1970s recession actually was mourning, which is where a team gets stuck in the past, looking back, feeling forever wistful or missing the good old days. And what that then does is you've got a team of people that aren't focusing forward. Well, what do we do now? And
Yeah.
interestingly, Debs, even though this tool is like 50, 60 years old
Yeah, it's
now,
old one, but it's a goodie.
there are still people who kind of go, I've never seen that before. God, that's
Yeah.
useful. Or there are people who've seen it back in the day and gone, I get it now.
Yeah.
It's not that we're never going to work as a team. It's just the team are stuck in the past. No one's actually
Yes.
helped them process and set a fresh reformation. What are we doing
Yeah.
now? What do we stand for? Where are we going? So just on
And
a
I
very
think
simple level, from a team point of view, just placing where are we at now and what
Yeah.
does the next stage look like? What that mean? And it's not all just the manager, it's us as a team, where our energy is.
And I think it's super important to recognise where the team are. Where, as you're saying, you know, when you're looking at Tuckman's model, it can really make a difference to find out where are we, because some people might be at different stages in that team formation, and then that's where I think that ability to just take a moment and review and reflect and reset can make a massive difference. You know, I was working with a team only last week who did just that. That was the whole point of them coming back together, to be able to just sort of pause for a moment, let's reset. It was great to be in the room with everybody, and it just made a huge difference. They created a real team spirit around what they were going to do, and then how they were going to roll that out to their teams as well. So in a half a day, we got through loads of stuff because they'd obviously come together. They were sort of storming norming, but actually they felt more able to then, you know, come into the norm and then the perform bit. But they had to reset as well and renew where they had come from. Brilliant. It worked really well.
It's so handy. And I think for everyone, it just empowers you. Oh, we're not stuck like this forever.
No.
This is just, you know, we're just a set of duds who are all trying to make it work. Actually, we can make this, we can make this work.
Absolutely.
It's all part of a journey. There are just
Yeah.
maybe some targeted conversations we can then have. So
Yeah.
the Tuckman model, it's been around for ages. It's a really handy place to start. Whether you've been there, done it, worn the T-shirt, well, you know, the T-shirt might not be fitting quite so like it used to before. Permission to just re-look and kind of evaluate.
Yeah.
So it helps set a bit of a 3, 6, 9-month game plan, because just like seasons, teams go through those ebbs and flows, and there's any kind of change, then that kind of, you know, can impact a team and then the dynamics. And from a hybrid point of view, there'll be less accidental moments for these relationships to form. This is, I think, what I'm seeing, Debs. I know you're going to take us through a tool in a moment that can really help process that as well. But we might need to be far more targeted and mindful about it now.
Definitely.
Because you might not all just happen to sit next to each other waiting for a meeting to start in a room and you all have a chance to chat. These things might need to be much more planned and put in, because there might be less serendipitous moments for some of this kind of teamship to form.
Yeah. And I think that's where, you know, having the flexibility and trust of the team is going to be super important to help people move through whatever it is they're being faced with. So the ability to start and establish that strong team culture, I think, has to be a priority if you really want your team to perform super well. So maybe looking at how do you do that, and what can you do differently, or revisit, or, you know, just take a moment and look at it for what it is.
So, Debs, take us through the next bit of kit, which just fits really smartly into I can see where the team is at now, and I can see what a performing team looks like in terms of how we work and ways of working. And so take us through now what that might mean in terms of creating a fully functioning team. So how we as a team are set up and we are fully functioning in terms of our ways of working.
So, Lord, this is Patrick Lencioni's model, which again is an old one, but a really good one, because again it gives people an opportunity to just stop and pause and think about where are we in relation to our team dynamic. And we talk about 5 stages to create, as he said, the 5 successes or frustrations of a team. And what he talks about is being able to know where you're at on those different levels, and what you can do to enable teams to move through the storming to the norming to the performing to some extent. So the first one is always the trust and safety. And that is the foundation really of any great team working well together. Because the minute there is trust, there is respect or mutual respect, there's an acceptance, There's the ability to be vulnerable. There's an ability to identify what my needs might be within the team. There is strengths, there's good characters within it, we have a good level of competence, then that absolutely builds the trust and safety within the team rather than the distrust of feeling unsafe. Everybody's in it just for themselves, and that's not a good place to be. So trust is the foundation of everything. And as a team, being able to identify that by getting to know each other better, taking time out, being able to have good, strong communication, knowing what you love, what you loathe, all of these things. So being able to create an environment where teams get to know each other better will start to build that trust. He then moves up to the next one, which is about how well do we, I suppose, deal with conflict. And I love the phrase, he talks about artificial harmony, where we're not really discussing any real issues. It's very nice. We're avoiding conflict. We're not speaking up. We maybe not even be listening to people because this is inherent fear of conflict, or people don't have trust, so therefore they're not sure. But the conversations might happen outside of that meeting. So we've all been there, right? When everybody's going, yeah, no, I'm fine, everything's okay. And then you walk out the door and then that's when the real conversation happens. So it's really important that we have, we create a space where people can be open and they can be candid, maybe in a respectful way, obviously, because if you built the trust, there will be respect. And it's a way to share ideas and thoughts and opinions. It's a way where we disrupt people's current thinking. And I suppose that's the bit that then people go, oh, okay, then actually this is creating harmony, not artificial, but a proper harmonious relationship. Like, I suppose, playing in the orchestra, you can hear the harmonies playing together. So that's where we want to get to. The third level he has is commitment. And it's about how do we involve people in order to be really proactive, to feel like they're participating in that team. Because the flip of that is then lack of involvement. They're not involved in any of the decisions you're making. You're just doing and making things happen regardless of whether you've got a team with you or not. So the more you can involve people in the decision-making process, the more you're going to commit to following up with them, the more you're going to have regular one-to-ones. All of those things start to build a level of commitment so that I feel like I belong and that I matter in this team, which then leads us to the fourth one, which is about accountability, taking responsibility and asking, discussing, taking the initiative in things. If there's something maybe misaligned, you're not afraid to speak up or put your thoughts in so that we're accountable. We are making sure we're part of something. We are, as you say, taking the initiative, having those conversations. Clear communication comes into this one as well. And therefore we're taking action and initiative around what it is we're doing, which is super important around it. Sorry, Lord, just have a drink while we're talking about this one. And then the very last one, which is what all companies want, right, is results. How do we achieve our team goals? How are we results focused? How are we looking at what's important to us? What do we need to do to help us do that? If we look at the results element of it, as I say, it's looking at that bit around how do we achieve team goals? What can we do? So we're paying attention to the results. And because we've got the trust at the very beginning and we're able to have good conversations around it and we feel like we're part of it and I know my role and responsibility in that space, then I'll deliver on the results that's wanted, so that it's not about just me. It's not about my ego. It's not just about my own department. So we're not siloed in our thinking. It's about inclusion and ensuring that everybody is part of that. And we're all heading in the same direction. And it's such a great model, and it works to create great conversations around how do we get our teams from that storming to norming to performing. And it's just a good way to have great conversations.
So Debs, right? So as I'm listening to you talk, And I'm quite a visual person, and I know
Mm-hmm.
from when I've seen the Patrick Lencioni model before, it is like this triangle with the
It is.
baseline at the bottom being
Yep.
trust.
Yep.
And once that is in place, you're much more likely to get those higher things.
Mm-hmm.
And you might have a team that is winning business for the moment, but the moment there's a setback or there's a
Yep.
challenge, if the trust isn't there, then it becomes dog eat dog. That impacts
does.
belonging and retention and etc. etc.
Yeah.
So as I was listening to you talk, I was thinking, hang on a minute. Are there actually some parallels between this and Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Oh my God, completely.
Right? So you've got an individual that needs to have psychological and physical safety and security before you've got enough headspace to think, how do I improve? How do I be my best self? So if you just found out you were at risk of redundancy, there aren't that many people that are going to be motivated to help that business achieve its 10-year vision, because suddenly your focus has gone way down on those kind of lower needs because they're at risk. Same with a team, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, same. Exactly the same.
So how do we as a team get our basics of, have we got each other's back, or do we have to watch our backs? And if I'm watching my back, because I don't really trust my team, and when they say something, I'm not entirely sure if there's an edge or not, then I'm diverting attention that could have been put on the key intent ahead.
Yeah.
But actually, I've got half an eye watching my back because I'm not quite sure what's going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it comes back to setting, the team up for success. So first of all, what are our ways of working as a team? How do we create and define what our team values are? What is our values? What's our goal? What's our mission as a team? So ensuring that then everybody's aligned to that. So, and everybody has a say in that. It's not just, I'm telling you this is where we're heading. This is about a conversation that shapes the structure of that team so that they feel part of something. And it starts with communication, right? Being sure that you've set some expectations around what we're communicating on, how we're going to communicate that. What are some of the guidelines that we do? What are our ways of working that enable us to do that? And regular check-ins. So how are we doing today? What's working? What's not working? Having a level of vulnerability. And I think that's super important, that people feel like they are part of that team because you bother and that you care enough about them to want them to thrive. So we're providing people with the right tools that they need to do their job. There is an opportunity to create that safety feeling because they know how to get hold of you. And it could be as simple as that. So for me, it comes back to that communication is everything. It starts there. What we do, we'll do. What we won't do, what we do like, what we don't like, who can do what, how, all of that lovely stuff starts there. And it enables us to grow and develop. We get feedback, we get recognition, we get projects that we want to work on. We're working together with other people who are just as talented as we are. And together we're heading towards that team vision and the team goal. And we're having that opportunity to thrive, not just survive.
Oh, I love it, Debs. There's, I'm thinking of a couple of breakthrough moments that I've had the privilege of seeing happen with teams, where you might have a team and at the start you're thinking, God, we've got to defrost some frozen hearts here. And, if you say to people, we're going to do a speed back exercise, and you think, oh, God, everyone just goes, no. But if you dress it up as just, we're just going to spend a bit of time getting to know each other one-on-one, round the room, bit of music on, and you see this sense of, oh my God, I've actually got some real quality colleagues. There's a lot of insight here. So someone might have only been in the business for 6 months. If you've been in the business battling for 16 years, doing all of the legwork, and then new people come in saying, we've got to change, we've got to transform. You can see how there become almost this old school, new school divide, which I'm picking up quite a bit of at the moment, actually, where there are people who have been doing the best that they can given the resources that they had at the time, who don't find it particularly motivating, actually having lots of new people coming in saying why is it done this way? Why isn't it done another way? And actually, rather than everyone just sort of competing and sort of arguing about it, let's just take 5 minutes to find out. Tell me about you. What's your background? What are you motivated by?
What do you love doing?
What do you love doing? What actually would give you a real buzz? You and I have been put together on this project. We don't really know each other. I know we've sat in meetings over the last couple of years, but should we just take half an hour to find out a bit about our bio, what we're interested in.
Yeah.
And then what that then means, Debs, is next time I see a little Teams chat message for you, I
Yeah.
understand the intonation behind it, that in a real world environment, I could have picked up through your body language and tone. But now in a hybrid environment, I can only go on the words alone. And
Yes.
so we need to have almost that catch-up time to then be able to prevent any conflicts over the next 6 to 12 months. So I
Definitely.
think it's about prioritising those conversations
Yeah.
that are more prone to imagination and perception
Yes.
than actually reality, because you've got less
Yeah.
time to judge each other.
Yeah, definitely. It's so over the top of, like, just like you did with Maslow,
Yes.
individually against Lencioni's model, we can do the same as individuals across Tuckman's model. So actually, I need to reform with someone or reset so that we have a greater understanding of what we're doing. We're knowledge sharing. We know what we're at. We know where we're heading. But it might be I'm accountable for making that happen. And because we are not accountable for other people, we're only accountable for ourselves. So if I'm noticing that something needs to maybe shift, or I'm not sure, then that's down to me to go and have that conversation with that individual to form a better relationship than the one we had maybe 3 years ago. So I think there's a lot of where these cross over, both from a team perspective, but also from an individual as part of that team. We have a accountability and a responsibility to make it the best it can be.
Yes,
Because we're here
Debs.
most of the time.
Because if you're stuck in traffic, you're part of traffic.
Yes, absolutely.
If you're surrounded by a demotivated team, well, you're part of that with that. And I've just heard countless times, I know we all would as well, where someone might say they're a really decent person, just sometimes they're a bit blunt when they communicate. How do you know? And then that means that in a real world environment, you kind of go, oh, well, that's just been them. Yes, and I know that they could take responsibility to tailor their communication style, but sometimes, people do just communicate in a way that you prefer it to be done differently. But that tolerance and that patience and that understanding happens because you've got a sense of knowledge about them.
Yeah.
If you're dialing in on Teams calls and all you can go in or is on someone's formal interaction, then they're just going to seem like a difficult person rather than someone that sometimes might be a bit blunt in relation to how you would like to be communicated with.
Yeah, very important. And I think that's when I think my call to action actually would be around check in with yourself as to how are you being on any of these hybrid calls that you might be on, or hybrid working that you've set yourself up with. How are you actually showing up to those? Are you properly present? Are you ready to be involved in the conversation? So yeah, that would be my call to action. Just take a moment to look at yourself and go, am I being my best self on here? Oh, maybe I'm not. I need to change that. That's what my call to action would be.
And my share the secret, Devs, would be, I guess it's riffing on Richard Beckman's grip model, which is such a simple way just to simplify what can feel very complicated. And teams can be complicated, and it's complicated further if there's not those kind of human aspects of where you're there in room, you're having to go purely on kind of language and written language alone. This is a way to sort of strip things back to basics. So STRIP.
Yep.
So sharing the secret. So just having a catch up with someone strategically, where's our team heading? So longer term, what's the game plan? Strategically, where are we heading? Tactically, what does that mean now and near? So what our focus should be. That's your S and your T. Roles, who's doing what? This is what I'm doing. What are you doing? Interpersonal interaction. So what would be our expectations for how much we communicate? What does that look like? And P is for processes. So what we're going to do, when, and what's our processes to be able to have some kind of governance. So strategic, tactic, roles, interactions, processes. And if you can't answer any of those clearly in your mind, then that will give you an indication that it might be worth then to prevent storming, lingering for longer than it needs to, getting a bit of clarity and enabling that fully functioning team. Because if you know that, you can trust much more what's happening, why decisions are being made, which then lends to all its good stuff. So strip things back to basics, Debs.
Strip it back to basics. Love it. I think that's a great share the secret, Law. So go on then. What are we talking about next week? Remind me.
Oh, next week we are talking about making the in-office time count.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
if hybrid model is the one that you are, or you're debating whether to follow, so you've organised yourself like a good un with time management tips we've been talking about as the first
We
focus on
have.
this 4-part focus. We've then had a look from a teamship point of view. So how do we ensure we actually are able to collaborate and work well as a team, with some concepts and some top tips. And then the next one is looking at, okay, I'm there in the office. I've battled through either public transport or queues. I'm here. How do I make that time count? So then you're able to really take advantage of that. Because sitting in a room rented out on your own, dialing onto a Teams call for 8 hours whilst you're there in an
Yes.
office,
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense. So how, when
No.
you're there, what does that mean before, during and after to make an in-office day really count? Can't wait for that one, Debs.
Yeah, looking forward to that one too. Well, in the meantime, let's have a good hybrid working week.
Yes, Debs. Let's strip it back.
Let's strip
it back
back
to performance.
Love it.
Have a good week. Love you.
Love you.
Bye.